All right, yesterday's video did not have any audio. I apologize. So we're going to reread. We're going to start over and we're going to finish this section. And I just wanted to, to say, because I was thinking about this, that I don't usually set a timer. I don't, I really try to get the thought form or the day's teaching across in a chunk of as per a section, and just find a happy stopping point so that we don't confuse the situation too much as far as just keep going and reading for an hour a day or something. That I don't feel that that's all that beneficial. I'd rather stop at a natural stopping point and spend some time thinking about it, pondering on it for the day. So that we're going to do that. This is going to bring us up to the next section, and let's get started. You have been told that one of the needs lying before all aspirants is to arrive at that intuitional knowledge and that intelligent understanding of glamour, both individual and planetary, which will enable them most definitely to work at its dispelling. That understanding will necessarily be only relative, but in the course of the next few years, your knowledge of the subject and of the methods whereby glamour can be dissipated can be materially increased. This must happen if you work at the problem consciously in your own lives and attempt to grasp the underlying theory also. So in this paragraph, as we get started again, we see that this is not a short process. This is a lot of training, and but also he's talking to the group that he was training during this time. Very little has been written or taught hitherto anent the subject of glamour. Anent generally means about, so about the subject of glamour. And it may mean much of value if we undertake the consideration of this subject, of its causes and its effects, and also deal with the technique whereby it can be dissipated and dispelled. It is obvious that I cannot deal with the subject adequately in one instruction, and we will take the next 2 or 3 years, therefore, to discuss and study this important matter growing out of the need of the present time and the increased sensitivity of humanity to subtler impressions. And as we see, it's always more subtle. It's always our ability to sense the more subtle. It's never about, it's not the other way. It has not been possible for me to do this up till now, as the group was incomplete and the inner cohesion needed strengthening. Now I can do so as the group members are functioning together with a much increased inner relationship, and a spirit of love has been shed abroad among you through the group reaction to each other's need in the recent period of glamour. And do we know how these groups are made up now, technically speaking? No. Are we part of the same group? If we're listening and reading and studying this together, maybe. We're certainly brothers and sisters, no doubt of that. That's easy. So it is my intention, therefore, to change your work somewhat, retaining the symbolic phrases as an exercise for your intuitional insight, but dropping the consideration of the more formal and visual symbols. You have not gained from these symbolic forms what has been hoped, for the concrete mind of the majority of the group members simply increased the form aspect, and the remainder needed not this method of instruction and development. We shall change the focus of attention to a deep study of glamour. Herein will lie your service, for as you think truly and use your illumined intelligence, if you can achieve this, my brothers, you can help in time to do two things. One, to clarify the group mind on this subject. I refer not here to your particular group, but to the world consciousness. And two, we can help shatter that the great illusion which is held and still holds the sons of men in thrall. And that, when I hear that, I think of The Matrix Has You. And that's a great movie to look at all of these things that we're talking about here, as far as the glamour and illusion and desire and all of these things, and seeing through, to reality. It's just a great movie to, everybody knows that, to look at these things. I ask, therefore, for your service along these lines, and I request also that you give increased attention at the time of your full moon contact with myself. This group should have a special aptitude for work along the line of dispelling glamour at the period of the full moon. Contact is made on the different planes according to the focus of the subtle bodies of the personnel of the group, and this group makes its contact with me on the higher levels of the astral plane. Hence the clarity of their reactions and the wealth of their detailed records. Also, herein will lie eventually their service, for they can later, but not for some long time yet, utilize the days of contact and the moment of entrance, as it is sometimes called, for definite work in dispelling some of the world illusion. First must come, however, aptitude in dispelling it in the personal life of each one of you. And that's really always how it goes, right? Like we work on ourselves, and as we're working on ourselves, we can begin to help others. And as we achieve, we help others to achieve. Another group makes its contact with me on mental levels, and therein will lie their field of service. Still other groups are only as yet in an embryonic stage. Their personnel is incomplete and the group integration only in process of being set up. I will therefore ask you to intensify your effort each month at the full moon period and seek to strengthen your tie with myself and with your fellow group members. One word of warning only will I give. Success along this line will bring both its reward and also its difficulties. You will have to watch with care for the undue stimulation of your astral or emotional nature, with consequent and subsequent glamour. You'll have to exercise the deepest watchfulness in the endeavor to work thus on the astral plane, holding simultaneously the attitude of the observer on the high plane of the soul. No constructive work and no service of vital importance can be rendered in this difficult sphere of activity unless there is this detached and liberated attitude. You are to work in one of the most difficult spheres of activity, perhaps the most difficult to which a disciple can be called, and hence the advisability of working there in group formation. I cannot emphasize too strongly that you are to work as a group and not as individuals. It has not become perfectly, crystal clear yet in my mind as I'm reading this, as to whether this is how is this work put on us? Is it how is it put on us? Is it given to us in emotions to be transmuted? Is it given to transform, astral bodies, or and it's just so interesting. Let's just keep going. This is just a thought that popped up in my mind. It's just what how are we doing this work? I see how we're doing it, but how is it put on? And this is work given to us, right? So it's not like you're going to work today and somebody throws a folder on your desk and says, hey, this is your work for the day. We have to intuitively recognize that folder and what's in that folder, and then accomplish that work without there have ever been anybody telling you that you're at work or that there's work to be done. And hence the need for us to read and understand what's going on here, because it would be very confusing if we didn't know. It would be very bewildering if we didn't know what we're actually doing. So, all right, let's keep going, because that's so deep, right? I'd love to have that conversation much more with people who recognize what we're talking about there. That would be a great conversation. 3 great events are imminent in the world consciousness today. Three great events are imminent in the world consciousness today. 1, the growth and understanding of telepathic work. 2, a comprehension and scientific investigation of illusion and world glamour. And 3, an increase in the right methods of healing. If this is so, you can see how groups of disciples can constitute a contribution to the emerging revelation, and how useful our consecrated service can be. I say our advisedly, brother of old, as I am working definitely towards these 3 ends as part of my ordained or self-ordained service. I ask for your cooperation and assistance. And look, how amazing is it? The master just asked for your cooperation and assistance. What's our decision? And that's one of those things, and from a personality standpoint, where I was, we were in the military, and we just pack our bags and go, and we lived out of our backpacks, and it never fazed us. And it was something really good. That was a really great time to help us see how little we need. So now I'm like, all right, well, should I pack a bag, or do I not? What do I need? Let's go. The steady impact of right thought on the human consciousness by trained groups of thinkers is the method that can be most successfully applied at this time, and here these groups can help profoundly. The steady impact of right thought on the human consciousness. That's very deep there too. One of the things which will emerge most definitely during the next 3 or 4 decades, and I remember this book was from the, let's see, (1950) was the first printing of this. And it was said quite often that these books were written primarily for those who would come at the turn of the century, And we think that it appears it's slightly delayed. So it's really, it's for those now. It's for now. Maybe it was for them then. It's also for right now. And he says, one of the things will emerge most definitely during the next 3 or 4 decades is the work that groups can do on levels other than the physical. Group service and united effort towards group welfare has for 2 centuries been seen on Earth in all fields of human endeavor, political, philanthropic, and educational. Group service on the astral plane has been started also since 1975, but united effort to dispel the world glamour is only now in process of organizing, and this group can be a part of the corporate effort towards this end and swell the number of those so engaged. Train yourselves, therefore, and learn how to work. Telepathic sensitivity is necessarily the object of all groups of disciples, but is the main objective of that group, which we might call the telepathic communicators. Here they can render potent service. Groups of sensitives of this order can constitute a working, mediating body and transmit the new knowledge and teaching for the race. They can mold public opinion and change the current of men's thoughts. All small groups of people, naturally and inevitably, arrive at a telepathic relation between themselves and between the personnel of similar groups. And this is to be desired and fostered and should rightly and steadily increase. But as your telepathic sensitivity is increased, see to it that you are not deflected from your main group objective, which is to study and understand the significance of glamour and the laws for its dissipation. Record and note all telepathic activity and phenomena and learn to work this way, but regard it as a secondary issue for you at this time. Now, there is a book called, I think it's literally might just be called Telepathy. Maybe we'll read that. It might be something, we'll have to run that through. I'll have to take a look at it and see if it's something that we should read, and maybe we can read that next before we get into the treatise on the 7 rays. But when the Christ reappears, when there's the reappearance of the Christ, and this being after the awakening of many who take the first initiation, which is really available to the majority right now. The ability to give the teachings telepathically, how better can you serve? If we're here for the reappearance of Christ and you're telepathic, you're given the teachings from the Christ, the new teachings, or from the masters in 2025, and you're able to do this. I mean, how powerful of a disciple. I mean, you're not necessarily powerful. How helpful are you? That would be unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. So this is something we should definitely, if you're going to desire something, right? One of the outstanding characteristics of the work done at the time of the full moon will be the massive phenomenon noted. This is to be expected as this service calls you to work on the astral plane, but it will provide you with a field for the wise use of the faculty of discrimination. It is too early as yet for you to work at the problem of separating the real from the unreal. Your task at first will be recording. Keep detailed records. Preserve the scientific attitude of detachment and of recognition, and write down all that is sensed, seen, and contacted. These records will serve as the basis of analysis if all goes well, and from that analysis, we may gather much of value. What I have to say to you as regards the subject of glamour falls into certain broad generalizations. And these are the sections that we'll get into. It's the nature of glamour, the causes of glamour, and 3, the dissipation of glamour. As we proceed, we shall divide our subject up into greater detail, but in this instruction, I only seek to get certain broad outlines into your mind so that the theme may fall into right places in your thoughts. There are 4 phrases which have long been bandied about among so-called occultists and esoterists. They are glamour, illusion, Maya, and the expression, the dweller on the threshold. They all stand for the same general concept or some differentiation of that concept. Speaking generally, the interpretations have been as follows, and they are only partial interpretations and are almost in the nature of distortions of the truth owing to the limitations of the human consciousness. Okay, now I'm going to read these and know that these are the distortions as we may or may not see them, or as they're seen by others. Right? Glamour has often been regarded as a curious attempt of what are called the black forces to deceive and hoodwink well-meaning aspirants. Many fine people are almost flattered when they are up against some aspect of glamour, feeling that their demonstration of discipline has been so good that the black forces are interested sufficiently to attempt to hinder their work by submerging them in clouds of glamour. Nothing could be further from the truth. That idea is itself part of the glamour of the present time and has its roots in human pride and satisfaction. And this is not the only place that this is talked about. You know, we hear it all the time where, you know, not today, Satan, or this, or, you know, the forces of, you know, I'm being attacked because I'm trying to do good. That's not how that goes. That's not what that is. That in itself is part of the glamour of the present time and has its roots in human pride and satisfaction. So, isn't that interesting? Energy follows thought, you know, and creates some nonsense potentially. All right, Maya is often regarded as being of the same nature as the concept promulgated by the Christian Scientists that there is no such thing as matter. We are asked to regard the entire world phenomena as Maya and to believe that its existence is simply an error of mortal mind and a form of autosuggestion or self-hypnotism. Through this induced belief, we force ourselves into a state of mind which recognizes that the tangible and the objective are only figments of man's imaginative mind. This, in its turn, is likewise a travesty of reality. And we go into this, and we correct these later on in this section. Illusion is regarded rather the same way, only as we define it, we lay the emphasis upon the finiteness of man's mind. The world of phenomena is not denied, but we regard the mind as misinterpreting it and refusing to see it as it is in reality. We consider this misinterpretation as constituting the great illusion. It's so strange how one little piece of knowledge too can change everything almost in an instant. You know, one new perspective, one new understanding, one glimpse for one split second into some new truth can change everything that we had ever thought before, which just tells us we need to guard ourselves from this. stop believing our own thoughts, our own selves, our own emotions, our own, we think that we have this intuition of things, and it's been said in these other books that is wrong. We're talking about intuition now. We talked about it earlier, and how this is brought about. When people think that they have some, there's some level of psychic connection there, that may be a thing, but it may not have any reality, foundation in reality or basis, which is super interesting. All right. That's written. I'm not kidding, too. So we trust ourselves too much at times, and that's a glamour. The dweller on the threshold is usually regarded as presenting the final test of man's courage and as being in the nature of a gigantic thought form or factor which has to be dissipated prior to taking initiation. Just what this thought form is, few people know, but their definition includes the idea of a huge elemental form which bars the way to the sacred portal, or the idea of a fabricated form constructed sometimes by the disciple's master to test his sincerity. Some regard it as the sum total of a man's faults, his evil nature, which hinders his being recognized as fit to tread the path of holiness. None of these definitions, however, give a true idea of the reality. I would point out here that generally speaking, these four expressions are four aspects of a universal condition that is the result of the activity in time and space of the human mind. The activity of minds, plural, with capital M-I-N-D-S, capital all caps, with an exclamation point. Ponder on this phrase, for it gives you a clue to the truth. And, because I read this, I know that there's another clue in the very next line, which says, the problem of illusion lies in the fact that it is a soul activity, and the rest of the mind aspect of all the souls in manifestation. So it's a soul activity and the result of the mind aspect of all the souls in manifestation. It is the soul which is submerged in the illusion, and the soul that fails to see with clarity until such time as it is learned to pour the light of the soul through into the mind of the brain. So prior to this, we're operating ultimately in ignorance. The problem of glamour is found when the mental illusion is intensified by desire. What the theosophists call kama manas produces glamour. It is illusion on the astral plane. And, the astral plane, again, being the playground of the gods, where anything can be anything. You can determine whatever you want and call it your own truth. Is it true? No. You can say it is, and it can be your truth. And this is what people say, speak your truth. Well, you're speaking a level of, unless you're enlightened to these, you're speaking a relatively ignorant truth, with all due respect. Our problem is always conscious awareness. Every problem that we have can be fixed by additional consciousness, it seems. And the sages have said that forever, and we've heard that, and it seems just to become more and more true as we go. The problem of Maya is really the same as the above, plus the intense activity produced when both glamour and illusion are realized on etheric levels. It is that vital, unthinking, emotional mess in which the majority of human beings seem always to live. And this is interesting because it is that vital, unthinking, emotional mess. Yes, brother of old, that is the word I seek to use. This mess, capital M, capital E, capital SS, in which the majority of human beings seem always to live. And then the dweller on the threshold is illusion, glamour, Maya, all combined, it seems here, as realized by the physical brain and recognized as that which must be overcome. It is the bewildering thought form which the disciple is confronted when he seeks to pierce through the accumulated glamour of the ages and find his true home in the place of light. Now that's interesting because illusion, glamour, Maya, and we're looking at this from all the way from the physical through the emotional and mental plane. So there's that, it seems like there's that triplicity there as well, combining all of them. The above are necessarily only generalizations, and the result also of the activity of the analytic mind, but they serve to embody a part of the problem in words and to convey to your minds a definite thought form of what we shall later discuss in detail. And we do get much more into detail in this because this is a full study. And as we get through this book, we shall have a very clear picture of glamour on all the planes. As to the causes of this world condition, what can I say, brother of mine, which will convey meaning to your minds? It's very comforting when he says, brother of mine, and he has asked for your help, and you're recognized, we, however you want to call it, as brother, not to say we don't recognize. It's just nice to hear kind words being used, right? That's what I'm saying. It's a little, whatever. It just seems nice. We're conversing more or less, right? This is more of a conversation and a teaching. It's almost like he's here saying it. It's not a book. Like there's distance to this book, and you don't know who wrote it. It's more intimate this way. Is what I'm trying to get out. The cause lies far back in the consciousness of the imperfect gods. Does that sentence really mean aught to you? But little I fear, we must descend into the realm of greater practicality and only deal with the matter as far as it concerns humanity. Planetary illusion will later be briefly dealt with, but the immediate problem before man and the significant contribution of the disciple is the dissipation of much of the glamour in which mankind is immersed, and which during the coming Aquarian age will largely disappear in connection with the astral life of the race, and the astral life being the desire nature, where there is much of this, where the playground of the gods has been, and all right, so this, as to the causes of this world condition that we're talking about here, the cause lies far back in the consciousness of the imperfect gods. Does that mean anything to you? we're moving, as we're talking about this, we're moving into reality now. These great myths of things, or we're moving into reality. We're leaving that the old behind, the old mythologies, I want to say, in a sense, are being substituted for what is scientifically and more technically accurate at this point, to where analogy and correspondence now can be more properly understood by an illuminated mind in physical body. So this is deep here. All right, we're moving away from that. We're moving into what is real. Thank God. Thank God. Just what's real. That's what we want. Planetary illusion. All right, we already dealt with that. During the coming carnage will largely disappear. Okay, this is good. We want this. We're looking forward to this. Glamour, in which mankind is immersed, in which during the coming Aquarian age will largely disappear. Connection with the astral life. Great. That's great. The point I would here make is to call attention to the fact that it is in meditation and in the technique of mind control that the thinkers of the world will begin to rid the world of illusion. Hence the increasing interest in meditation as the weight of the world glamour is increasingly realized, and hence the vital necessity for right understanding of the way of mind control. Super interesting there. And if we look at this push for meditation, it's almost like it, and I'm not saying almost, it would appear as an abstracted, reflected type of way, as a push towards knowing what's real. I don't reckon many people meditate so that they can escape into some la la land, or I mean, even if you build your house in the stars and you go set there, you're there contemplating reality. So interesting. Another point which should be noted is that in the crystallization of this material age comes the great opportunity to strike a deadly blow on the planetary dweller on the threshold. The reaction at this time, through the stress of circumstances, is bringing about a more spiritual understanding and a reorganization of human values. And this is part of the process whereby a vital part of the world glamour may be dissipated. If only all men of goodwill within the world aura adhere to their appointed task. And it appears that, many of us are not, because we're still running around caught up in nonsense of our own making in many ways, which is normal and nothing to can't get mad about it or anything. It just is what it is. But when we see our destiny and glimpse reality a bit, we can move out with much more purpose. When the Buddha was on earth and achieved illumination, he let in a flood of light upon the world problem through his enunciation of the Four Noble Truths. His body of disciples and his 900 arhats formulated those four great truths into a structure of dogma and doctrine that, by the power of collective thought, has greatly helped in the attack upon the world illusion. Today, the Christ is carrying forward the same great task, and in the spiritual significance of his imminent coming, and in the language of symbolism, he and his 9,000 arhats will strike a blow at the world glamour. So Buddha had 900 arhats, Christ has 9,000. There's something very deep to ponder on all that there. That's worthy of it. Of some thinking time. It is for this that we prepare. Only intuition can dispel illusion, and hence the need of training intuitives. Hence the service you can render through this general cause by offering yourselves for this training. If you can overcome glamour in your own lives, and if you can, therefore, comprehend the nature of illusion, you will help in the destruction of the dweller on the threshold, the devitalizing of the general Maya, the dissipation of glamour, and the dispelling of illusion. This you have to do in your own lives and in the group relation. Then your more general contribution will help in the wider human issues. The acuteness of the intellect and the illumination of the mind, plus love and intention, will accomplish much. To this service, I reiterate my call. During the next few months, I would suggest that you do three things. One, define in your own words, and as the result of meditation, your understanding of the four expressions with which I have been dealing. I ask for a real analysis and not just 4 sentences of definition. Before I enlarge upon this subject, I would like you to organize your minds on the matter, using definitions as a guide to your thought, yet stating the problem as you see it, and seeking to see the differences existing between these 4 aspects of the world glamour. And these 4 aspects being the what we've continuously been talking about here, which is Maya, illusion, glamour, and the dweller on the threshold, right? Say each day with care and thought a very familiar prayer, the Lord's Prayer. It has many meanings, and the trite and usual Christian significance is not for you. Ponder on this most ancient formula of truth and interpret it entirely in terms of a formula for the dissipation of illusion. Write an exegesis on it from this angle, taking it phrase by phrase and regarding it as giving us 7 keys to the secret of the elimination of glamour. The formula, which is not essentially a prayer, can be divided as follows. A, an invocation to the solar Lord. B, 7 sentences embodying 7 keys for the dissipation of illusion. And C, a final affirmation of divinity. Use your intuition and apply these all to the subject of glamour and see at what knowledge you will arrive. Then write it down in the form of an interpretation or article, and we may arrive at much value here. Keep a copy of your full moon record. At the close of 6 months, subjected to careful analysis, and see what is the sum total of gain. Divide your analysis into the following heads and express your understanding of the phenomena. As to any real contact, as to any color contact or phenomena, and as to any other phenomena sensed or seen or heard. Now, a couple things here. As we do begin to meditate more and more, and we see these cycles more and more, and we understand these things more deeply, you will experience contact, phenomena, sense, seen, or heard. But these things are much more subtle than we want to acknowledge things. Right? So as we become more subtle, the contact is much more subtle. That's why we have to become more subtle. This is a process of getting to say silence, or a very quiet thing, interiorly quiet. And it would absolutely help if you wrote these things down as they happen and as they come up. I had not done this. I see now that it would have been much more beneficial to do that. I am starting to take some more notes. If you can keep the journal, that's great. It's been outlined, it's been told to us in all the different schools to do this. There's a reason why they tell us, so we should do it. The reason why the master is telling you to formulate your own ideas of Maya, glamour, illusion, and the dweller on the threshold is so that it becomes yours. You have a way of explaining it interiorly and outwardly, and expressing it to others, and using the definitions. It then becomes your understanding, right? And this is, you are becoming more inclusive. So that's the end of this section with this last sentence here. Let me read it. That we may all go forward into greater light and understanding, and that the light may shine upon the vertical way of the disciple is my prayer and aspiration for you. So that's very comforting as well. I would say, I'm going to pull up, I'm going to read the Lord's Prayer again, and I'm going to look for this. And I'm going to see I want to see the deeper meaning that he's talking about in this. So I'm going to do that today. And there's, we'll keep our thoughts on, potentially pondering on glamour, illusion, and Maya, and the dweller, and, make this part of our life, and let it become part of our life. Let the other BS go. Let go of nonsense. There's so much glamour and illusion and connection to nonsense. And as soon as we see this in our life and we start to let go, it becomes blatant, like glaringly blatant, how the matrix is holding the others. And we can see this in such a very real way. It's incredible. And then, we're starting to look for the ways to help, because we recognize we must. And it's not impossible. Once you've done this for yourself, you see that it's also possible for everyone else. And in that is there's a huge understanding in that. It all started, things really start to make sense here. All right, we're going to leave it there, and then we'll get into section 1 Monday in a couple days, and that is the nature of glamour. And then we're going to start getting in deeper and deeper. And by the time we're done with this, we're going to have a great, very real, crystal clear understanding of what we're looking at, with these eyeballs, essentially. in others. All right, thank you. Have a good one.